Okay. Let's go in 3, 2, 1.
Alrighty, so my name is MHFsilver, or just Silver, and I'm joined here by my co-commentator Shovel.
Hi, I'm Shovel Claus. I don't run this game, but it's pretty cool. This is Vividlope. I'm excited. This game rocks.
Yeah, so the category we're going to be doing today is called any percent items, and we'll explain more as to what that means, but going into it, the most important thing is at the start of every level, you'll see a little box show up at the bottom of the screen. We'll explain more as we get into it, but the first thing we're going to do is start the run by selecting Miss Noir in 3, 2, 1, go. And right off the beginning of the run, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stand in a corner, and we'll explain why later. And then we see this little NPC to the right. He actually wants to talk to us, but we can just jump over him and not interact at all. And we get to enter the first world of the game. So Shovel, if you want to take away with explaining some stuff.
Yeah. So the basics of this game are really simple. If you've ever played Ninja Pater on cool math games, is what I like to describe as my analog. This is kind of like that, mix in some Splatoon and some, general puzzle game elements.
Yeah, so at the beginning...
Every stage, we have to cover a certain amount of the tiles in the stage. So you can see at the top right, or top left there, we have to cover 85% of the stage in this paint. And we do that by walking over tiles and some of the characters' special abilities here, and Miss Noir is very good at it, thankfully. But yeah, very simple premise.
Yeah, so the main thing that we're using is called Max Power. That is the main item you'll see me use throughout every single level. And the reason being is this little thing that I'm doing where I'm just filling in lines ahead of me, that is using Miss Noir's power. And what she uses her power based on the power gauge I have on the left-hand side. The item I'm using maximizes that gauge, which for most characters it just controls their speed. For Miss Noir and for the other character Cerise, it unlocks a special ability depending on how full it is. So Miss Noir gets access to a couple of different abilities that act as items or do the same function as items we would unlock normally. And the main one we're going to be using is called Rolling Fire, and that just sends a straight path in front of me and also has a benefit of getting rid of enemies in front of me. And there are going to be times in later levels where we're going to have to change the color multiple times. The Rolling Fire will set it to whatever color it needs to be at the end. So we benefit quite greatly from it. And so you'll see me use a max power at the beginning of basically every single level. The other thing you're going to see me do at every level is normally there's a little flyover where the game will show you what the level looks like. I'm actually skipping that by clicking in on the left stick. I can do the retry button, and by doing it during this fade in where it's trying to show me what the level looks like, it is actually a skip and will load me into the level faster. That's faster than, watching the animation play, or normally you can hold X to speed it up. Just mashing the retry button resets it and lets you get into the level much quicker.
Yeah. And you'll see occasionally as well here as Miss Noir, she actually also has a dash move that Silver can take advantage of to, at the end of every cover percentage that we need, we can actually just instantly right behind us, and that will decrease our power meter all the way down to empty. Whenever you tread over ground that you've already covered, you will instantly lose power. It ticks down ever so slightly. So this game is a really careful balancing act of maintaining that power meter while trying to get the most for your power as possible. Because using Rolling Fire actually decreases the amount of power in that gauge. The kind of benefit to any percent items is that it's a lot easier to maintain that power meter because you don't have to worry about power when you have an item that you can just instantly max your power. But you can see at the end of every stage we enter this bonus phase, and we want to get out of that as fast as possible. The way we do that is by just tanking our power meter all the way down to 0 instantly.
Yeah, so we basically, anytime we enter that bonus phase, if we have the power to, we want to dash directly over tiles we filled in. If we don't have enough power, which can happen, we want to actually walk diagonally over tiles, because then we're hitting multiple tiles at once as we walk, just so we can quickly end that bonus phase. And then as we go through...
World 3.
Yeah, as we progress, worlds are going to start introducing new features and new ideas. So this one we can see these little tiles that have the arrows on them. They actually speed you up, and we're going to use that to our advantage to sort of speed me along as I'm filling in all these areas. The other abilities that Miss Noir has are ones we're not going to really touch too much. She's got one that's borderline useless in my opinion, but the dash and the rolling fire are the ones that are going to be incredibly vital. And as mentioned earlier, we want to mostly control our power gauge. With the fact that I can just instantly refill it, doesn't mean that I'm completely careless in regards to it. With that previous level, there were some tiles where I was using the rolling fire to fill in, but then still walking down a certain path. And the reason I'm doing that is to preserve the amount of power gauge I have. And so instead of just spamming them wildly and losing all my power gauge and having to spend the time menuing to get it back, those levels like that, I will usually take a smaller route where I will just walk a bit of it. You can also refill it by touching the bonus fruit that will spawn naturally in the levels. Those will refill your power gauge by a certain amount. But for the most part, what we're going to be doing is starting every single level by using a max power, and then working around and then just filling them in. Most of the levels we're going to be playing are going to be based around straight lines to maximize the capabilities and the usefulness of the rolling fire itself. And then later in the game, that sort of changes. But as you'll see, there's a lot of times I'm just skipping by levels and not touching a lot of them. With the thing I did at the beginning of the game where I just stood in a corner, that's called short mode. And short mode changes how many levels I need to beat per world from a varying amount from like 8 to 12 to only 5 at most. And so 5 is the only amount of levels I will ever have to do in each world. So we're only going to do the 5 fastest levels, which, because of the way that, you know, when it comes to stuff like this, the routing always changes and there's always new ways to do certain stuff. So this route for this game has changed dramatically in like the last year, especially because within the last year is when Miss Noir came out. She was introduced with an update that was specific to the Nintendo Switch version at first when that came out, and then she came to PC later.
Yeah, short mode makes the routing of this game really dynamic because instead of needing like 8 whole stages, you can just pick the fastest 5, and occasionally that changes. You know, you'll find a new route that, oh, this one's faster now, so we can swap in what we're doing now. Here in this stage, we get introduced to the bomb. The bomb is extremely useful. That's a sentence, a unique sentence. The bomb just gets rid of enemies, which can be really convenient if you have an enemy just kind of spawn on top of you. And additionally, we have these invisible tiles that will light up whenever you get near them. This is supposed to make it kind of confusing. Thankfully, the routing for this game makes it to where these don't usually pose much of an issue, but you can get kind of off and you miss an invisible tile and you're like, oh, find whatever invisible tile I missed. Uh-oh.
Yeah, and they used to be a whole lot trickier. In recent updates, it has made it easier to spot where the invisible tiles were. But in earlier versions, it was very difficult to spot them. So if you missed one, you'd be wandering around for a while trying to figure out where you messed up.
Yeah. You can see here also, rolling fire is not just... it kind of follows the gravity in a way. That's a weird way to describe that, but it's true. Of the stage, so it'll curve down those curved tiles. I had some Super Monkey Ball on the brain because because of the that one bit we ran that one time. So, but it makes it to where rolling fire is really useful even on stages where you know, it has all these curved edges and you have these wild stage layouts where you're meant to kind of find your own path, but you can just throw rolling fire down and boom, it's just that easy. And here is one of those stages where we need to color a tile multiple times, and rolling fire coming really in handy with that. You can just throw it over and not worry about it. However, we're getting introduced to some stages that will kind of recursively remove our progress, so it'll unlight a tile whenever we walk over it for a second or third time. So we want to try to avoid backtracking in those stages because it can undo our progress and make it a lot slower, depending on how bad we kind of fumble the route. Can get tricky.
Yeah, it is, especially levels like those. Those are typically ones we avoid like the plague when it comes to the routing for this game. We do not like levels like that because it really slows us down if we have to worry about where we're walking. We want to spend the most amount of time just, you know, going fast and not really caring. And so there are very few levels like that in the entire route. But even the ones that do exist, we do technically have a workaround, and that is there is an item we have called the Good Shoes, which make it to where you can save yourself for a certain amount of tiles from undoing those tiles. But it only does it for a certain amount of time. And so we can only do it so much. So I think I only use it once. And that's about it.
Yes, niche tech in my video game, yes! On the note of tech, something that Silver is doing that you wouldn't really realize it while watching this, unless it was pointed out to you specifically, is a technique with the rolling fire. You can notice sometimes that on these corridors, for example, Silver is going to be facing one way and throwing fireballs a different way. So he'll be walking up and throwing fireballs to the left. That's actually a technique that is, I can't remember the name. Is it firewalking or something like that?
It's Noir Quick Strafing. So the ability...
I don't know where I got firewalking.
The inputs for the ability are by, you're supposed to hold L2 and then press X to use the ability. Holding L2 will make you walk. Normally we're like just running, but holding L2 will actually make your character walk. And then it's actually triangle, I messed up. Then you press triangle to use the rolling fire. But it was actually discovered by a member of our community that if you press L2 and triangle together to start the rolling fire, and then you let go of L2, but continue to hold triangle, it'll remember that you're trying to use the rolling fire, and so instead you can initiate it by pressing L2. So what I'm doing is I'm facing a direction that I'm going to stay consistently throwing the rolling fire in, press L2 and triangle to start it, and then hold triangle and just press L2 to use the ability, essentially. And that allows me to maintain a good movement, to maintain good speed while still being able to use the rolling fire. So instead of having to slowly walk and trudge our way around, we can actually maintain full speed and still use the ability.
Yeah, it's a really cool movement tech that you wouldn't expect from a game like this, but it actually it is really precise and difficult to actually do because it has all of these inputs, and I misinputting, you're going to change the direction that Miss Noor is facing. She'll just walk in the other direction like a lost duck. So it can be really taxing to get that movement down. And Silver is exceptionally good at it, so, you know, it is really interesting once you spot it, that you'll see it everywhere in the realm. Like, the start of this stage is basically entirely just quick strafing.
Yeah,
it's a really sick movement tech.
Yeah, basically, I'm using it in just about every single level that you see me using the rolling fire, and that's it. What I refer to it as directional storage. I'm basically, when I initiate that first rolling fire, the game is actually remembering the whole time what direction I was facing, and so anytime I press the L2 button, it's going to instantly remember what direction I was facing when I used it the first time, and make Miss Noir snap to that direction and throw it no matter what path what direction I'm holding on the control stick or D-pad. And so it's very useful for like right now, I'm just doing it upward, but I'm only holding right on the D-pad, so I'm not holding any sort of up direction, but the game knows that's where I'm trying to throw it.
Yeah. Additionally, in this world, this sixth world introduces ice, and you'll see it a lot in this stage in specific. The like diagonal design on some of the tiles there is ice, and when we go over it, we'll start kind of slipping around, but you'll see Silver here just taking a nice little ice skating, just throwing rolling fire the entire way. Unfortunately, rolling fire to the ice, it just kind of covers tiles anyways, as normal, but we can kind of just flow across the stage there and throw rolling fire and let it handle it. Ice physics fun in a video game for once. Congrats, Vividlope. You're the first.
Yeah, typically people absolutely hate ice physics in video games, but the fun thing about items in Vividlope is the items also have ice physics. So when we're running around those ice tiles, if I throw rolling fire, the rolling fire also gets to deal with the ice physics, which for us is helpful, because I can just then sit there and spam it, and it'll just cover everything for me.
Yeah, it's awesome. Into World 7 now, and we're pretty close to getting one of the most busted items in the run that is going to change everything about how we play it. I'm excited.
Yeah, if you think the fact that me using a max power at the start of every level and doing the rolling fire makes this the most busted thing in the game, there's technically something even more busted that we get access to after this world that is so insane that it single-handedly changes how our route is done. So into this, we've mentioned that a lot of the levels we try to focus on straight lines. And that's because, obviously, the rolling fire does great at straight lines. But the next item we're going to get very much does not like straight lines, which isn't too bad, because also, as we approach the end of the game, the levels start to get more complex and more intricate and difficult, which just so happens to coincide with the item we're getting. And one thing I did in that previous level that I'm going to explain a bit more here is the bomb. The bomb item is used to clear out all the enemies on the screen, but it also gives you invulnerability frames. This level is intending for you to take a special item called the super jump, and the super jump, it does exactly what it sounds like. It just makes you jump super far, but once you pick it up, you can't use anything else. So what I'm doing instead is all of these pink tiles with the X's are supposed to insta-kill you. But by using the bomb to give myself invulnerability frames, I can just walk over all the tiles, or in this case, just dash over them, and then never have to worry about taking the damage, and not have to worry about picking up super jump.
Extremely cool tech, like the most niche tech in the game, but it's used to skip one upgrade. And a few tiles occasionally for routing reasons, but like, oh, it's so cool.
Yeah, it comes up a whole lot more in the all stages route, where there are more levels where we use that to like abuse the level design a bit more. But for this, it's very seldom used for that purpose, but it is very useful. I do it right here as well to give myself invulnerability frames so I can dash through all of that.
This is one of my favorite movement segments in the entire run. That part's so cool. It's funny you bring up all stages. I was thinking about mentioning that the item that we're about to get in the next world as we come up on finishing this stage, which I believe is the last one.
Yep.
Is so busted that in all stages you just do short mode up to this part, except for World 1, and then once you get this item, you back and do the rest of the game, like in reverse order with that really busted item. It's really funny. It's kind of ridiculous.
It's basically the game's version of 100%, where we basically start the run by doing any percent up to this point, and then do 100%.
Yeah.
And the reason being is the item we get access to now is called the Paint Burst. And the Paint Burst is very useful because it covers just a massive amount of paint around us. You're not going to see it so much here because it's kind of a cramped level, but all I have to do for this level is stand in very specific spots and use the Paint Burst, and it fills in everything for me, and I don't have to do anything. And
yeah,
just like the
becomes a lot more free-flowing in this part of the run, I would say, because the Paint Burst covers such a big area, and that it honestly allows you to just not deal with a lot of mechanics. It's really cool.
Yeah, and you can see it a little bit more here, just how much ground we're covering. The big benefit to it also is it does give us power gauge as well. So you'll still see me use the power gauge and max power just to give myself speed, but it allows us to now spend a bit more time using the dash ability instead of the rolling fire, and we'll just dash, Paint Burst, whoop, Paint Burst, and then dash.
Occasionally for fun.
Yeah, for fun, we'll just throw out a bomb. But it drastically it drastically changes the routing. And now instead of focusing on levels that are super tight and have like small corridors, now we're focusing on levels that have a bit more open-endedness because we want to get the most value out of the paint burst. Because now it allows us to cover so much more ground like that.
Yeah. In this stage, we get introduced to landmines. These will, you know, kind of appear out of nowhere and try to blow us up, but Silver already has all of them memorized. He knows where the landmines are, unsurprisingly. It's funny. The bomb joke was funny because Miss Noor is technically the villain of this story. Is the thing we haven't mentioned yet. I'm amazed that guy didn't kill you.
Yeah, technically,
but
we're playing as the villain of this story. So the other two characters, Cerise and Acrew, we didn't really talk a whole lot about them, but their whole gimmicks are Cerise, when her power gauge is high enough, she can take a hit, so she doesn't die in one hit if your power gauge is high enough. Acrew, the other character, his power gauge controls his speed, so he goes significantly faster than all the other characters when his power gauge is high. And they are technically the protagonists. Miss Noir here is the antagonist, and at the beginning of every single world, there's been a little cutscene that you see me skip. That one is very different from all the others. What's happening is the game's cutscenes are trying to tell us the story of why Miss Noir became the villain. And it's a very tragic story of her falling in love, realizing that the person she was in love with was cheating on her, and then her world comes crashing down because of it. And so she just wants to take it out on somebody. And so what we're doing over the course of her story is this whole thing we're playing through is her creation. She built all of this, and we're basically doing her test run before she sends it out into the world to try and trick somebody into it.
You know, I know she made the game and all, but I didn't think Miss Moore would be this good at Vividlope. Kind of gaming. This bit sucks. But we're in the final two worlds now, and you can see even in like these kind of corridor-heavy worlds or levels, Paint Burst is just good enough to where like it fills up the stages almost instantly. It is absurd, but it makes the routing really fun, I think. It's cool. This game's cool. Also, we haven't mentioned it yet in, like, fullness, but Miss Noor does die in a single hit, and it makes it... This game is really punishing, because if you make a mistake... there are a bunch of enemies that follow you around and each have different behavior, of course. Some of them are kind of Pac-Man style, they'll just, you know, chase you around. Some of them are Pac-Man style in that they're a little bit smarter than that and have their own dedicated patterns. So, even small mistakes can end up sending you kind of off course, and then enemies can, like, ambush you and kind of mess up your entire route. So, and this becomes especially prevalent in the late game of this run, where the stages end up getting flooded with enemies. They are literally everywhere and will not take any... So Silver has to be really careful to both not just instantaneously die after making a mistake, but also to try to minimize the risk of the mistake in the first place. And so, you know, occasionally throwing out bombs and stuff like that is usually good enough, but sometimes it can get really scary.
Yeah, and then now we're going to enter the final world. Just like at the start of the run, there's a little guy who wants to talk to us, but we can actually just barely skip past him, so I'm just going to jump over him. And then now entering the final world, the rules for the final world play a bit differently, and now you will not see me do that same level intro skip as I've been doing before, because the final world is technically treated as one giant level together. And so if I were to do that same sort of reset trick, it would actually send me back to this level. So if I was on like the very last level of this world and I did that, it would send me all the way back here. So definitely don't want to do that. And then different from all other levels, we actually start with max power and we die if we lose it. So the goal is now to start with max power and then maintain that max power. And then also every level needs to be filled 100%. So whereas before we've been prioritizing levels that generally have lower percentage counts, now every single level has to be filled 100%. And so every single level, we're going to have to take a very specific path to ensure that we minimize backtracking and then fill in every single tile as we go. And then, as mentioned by Shovel,
You can imagine.
yeah, it's also designed as a gauntlet, as you can imagine, for the final level of the game. So all of the most annoying enemies are here and present and accounted for.
Yeah, and making mistakes in finale here is really tricky, because you will spend a very long time searching for the one tile that a rolling fire just went right over. This finale segment also has just a killer banger from the OST. This entire game soundtrack is really good, but this one's one of my favorites.
Yeah, the soundtrack in this game is also, in general, just very good. The whole game soundtrack.
Yeah, 100%. Great time to mention this game. This game is pretty. So if you're looking for a chill, like, Katamari, this game is very Katamari vibes, I feel like, where it's like, oh, I'm just gonna, like, watch someone play this really good and enjoy my time, and then I'm gonna go, like, play it myself because it gave me the chink to. This is only $10 on Steam. It also has a demo and goes on sale super frequently. Add it to your wish list, wait for it to go on sale or something. This game is a blast, and if you're wanting to run it, it's a surprisingly technical puzzle platformer type game. So I would highly recommend it. I need to get around to doing that myself. Ignore that I don't take my own advice, but it's neither here nor there.
Shovel tags along with me for all of this because Shovel has been my biggest hype person throughout the entirety since it found out about this.
This game rocks, it's so cool. I love indie games.
Yeah, indie games, definitely support indie games. They are... All indie games need the help more than AAA developers. Keep that in mind. While there are definitely studios and AAA studios that kind of get screwed if you're looking at big name companies, keep in mind that the indie devs are the ones who always need the money and will always need assistance. So they're always worth playing.
And also, this game's dev is really active in the game's community. So, like, if you think this game just kind of looks cool, you like the, like, Y2K aesthetic, there are a lot of people alongside you who can, you can hang out with.
Yeah.
This game is a sleeper banger from, like, 2022, and I very rarely hear people talk about it.
Yeah, the dev for this game has been in our speedrunning Discord pretty much since it started, and they have even helped, like, fix bugs I've run into. Very early on, there were times where the game would constantly crash because of all of the effects and all the items being used, and so the dev would actually, like, ask me for the crash log so they could fix it. So, very, very good developer, very good game, and this is technically the final level, so we're about to come up on time here. And the final level is just a very basic cube, so... It is also, we don't see it, but it is a very basic level, which you may think is very, not very fun of the final level, but it's also where all of the nastiest enemies are. But
So true.
That's it. That's Vividlope any percent. And now, with everything complete, we technically go with in-game time. So at the end of it, the game gives you a breakdown of your ranks and your in-game time.
26:59, nice.
Yeah, so sub 27, which isn't too bad. My personal best is 26:26, so not too bad. Keeping it a minute under. But yeah, that
sub
was
27 is really good if for a marathon.
Yeah, it's any time for me that I can keep within a minute is good. Generally, anytime you're under estimate's good. It's very hard to do this game effectively and efficiently, especially, like, it's really hard to describe just how difficult this game actually is to play, and it's actually why Shovel suggested I use a input viewer on my stream, so that it's a bit more visible, you can see what I'm doing. But that is Vividlope. So I want to thank the people for having me on for this marathon. The game, like like Shovel said, is only $10. You can get it on Switch. You can get it on Steam. I think I don't think it was listed on the games that aren't compatible for Switch 2, so you could get it for Switch 2 as well. Definitely worth playing. The game is, well, I only did it in half an hour. My record for beating all of the stages still takes 2 hours, and normal casual play could probably take you 8 to 12 hours. So if you're looking for a game that could, so if you're looking for a game that's a fun weekend, but also very challenging, this game is definitely worth every penny, and you should definitely go play it.
And also go follow Silver on Twitch. Where do people find you?
Oh, yeah. Twitch.tv/MHFsilver. My Blue Sky is at MHFsilver.com. And then my YouTube is also MHFsilver. And then if you want to see my speedruns, it's just add an underscore to that. So YouTube/MHFsilver_ for my speedruns. No underscore for my other channel. But that's it.
Thanks for having us.